Donald Trump needs to make sure that he has the right people in charge in his administration, because you have a lot of nut jobs that are willing to take him down. They just released the Crossfire Hurricane stuff. I'm going to get to that. But first, the Space Force colonel way up in Greenland is out of a job because Susan Myers, the colonel in charge of this operation in Pituffik, am I saying that right? Pituffik Space Base in Greenland is all worked up that Donald Trump is talking about buying it because, well, let's just face it. I realize the Danes don't like the idea, but it's kind of strategic, right? It would be good if we could actually have some security there because it kind of runs interference, right, with China and Russia. And, well, I think even Greenland thinks that Denmark's not doing necessarily the best job looking after it. Anyway, this woman sent out an email saying that, she didn't agree. Here, I'll show you the email. So she actually said in this statement, the concerns of the U.S. administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Pituffik Space Base. And she said that over to the Danes as well. So she sends this out to everybody and then to the Danes. And I'm like, aren't you like part of the military? Isn't he the commander-in-chief? I mean, you kind of got to toe the line, right? Your boss says one thing, you don't agree, either go get another job or do what the boss says. I mean, this is so wild. This is so wild. So she is done. She has been fired. She has been relieved of her duties because, well, the administration has lost, they said, confidence in her ability to lead. Yeah, because she doesn't agree with what the commander-in-chief wants. Doesn't agree with the policy. Commanders are expected to adhere to the highest standards of conduct, especially as it relates to the remaining nonpartisan in the performance of their duties. Colonel Sean Lee has assumed command. So she's out of Greenland, and rightly so. I mean, this is just bonkers to me that anybody would do this. And think about how brazen they must be. If you know anything about the military, right? Think about how brazen you got to be to say, I am going to defy orders here, and I am going to go, and I am going to speak to another country as well as my people here and say that we don't agree with anything the administration is saying about the strategic importance of Greenland and the need to actually have it. Unbelievable. Well, it got me thinking, and I think that this is in part when you consider what went down, say, with Signalgate and Mike Waltz saying, oh, I take the blame because somehow he had a contact in his phone that happened to be Jeffrey Goldberg, who happens to be a super liberal reporter at The Atlantic magazine, very highly connected to Democrat circles. And somehow, some way, Mike Waltz winds up putting Jeffrey Goldberg on a chat, which was just bizarre because he said, I didn't even know Jeffrey Goldberg and I didn't even know that I had him in the contacts. Well, everybody's looking around saying, we got to do an investigation. We got to do an investigation. And people were like, Pete Hegseth has to go. Mike Waltz has to go. John Radcliffe has to go. Tulsi Gabbard has to go. Blah, 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 blah. And nobody said anything about the guy who's the NSA director, Timothy Ha. Now, whether it's Ha's fault or not, he is the head of the NSA. He is head of cyber operations. And if you believe that this was some kind of hack, then, I get it, right? You want to have your own people there. You want to have your own team. You got to have people that are actually on your side. And I'm really not convinced that he has enough of that. I mean, when you've got the commander up there in Greenland coming right out in an email, like there's an actual physical trace and saying, yeah, we don't agree with this policy at all. You've got some issues, right? So you're going to have to shore this up. You're going to have to get a handle on this. And you're going to have to make sure that the troops, so to speak, are actually aligned with what you believe in. Otherwise, you're going to keep running into problems over and over and over and over again. They need to know who's actually there. And when someone exposes themselves like this is not free speech, ladies and gentlemen. You're working for the President of the United States, okay? Come on, enough. Right? So you don't have the right in that case to say, I'm gonna do something different vis-a-vis policy. You absolutely do not. Laura Loomer brought this up. She's taken a lot of heat for this, but I want to just go to her. We've played this before, but it's important what she's saying. She's like, you got to know who's there. You got to vet people. And we need a lot more vetting. And, for whatever reason, everybody's doing this, that, or the other. She actually apparently went into the president and pointed out the lack of vetting among some of these folks, I mean, including, in her opinion, the NSA was part of this, because in her view, you had somebody who had been appointed by Biden, who was actually one of Milley's guys. And so why do you want that? It goes back to the simplicity of you need your own team, you need your own people.
I just think that there needs to be more appreciation demonstrated to Trump loyalists, because unfortunately, we do see a lot of gatekeeping in the GOP. And the thing that I harped on the most during the campaign season was, the importance of vetting. We need to vet people so that we don't have the same nightmare that we saw happen in the first administration, where people who are disloyal to President Trump.
Yeah, I mean, she's not wrong. So this is actually something that's done in corporations, right? You make sure that you have your own team there. And in the case of Susan Myers, she's definitely not on the team. She's out there doing what she can behind the scenes to make sure that she's undermining whatever the administration's policy might be. That's not going to fly, just like it didn't fly with James Dennehy. Remember him? He was the top FBI field agent in New York. He was the one who told everybody to dig in and to not reveal who was actually associated with the investigation into the president. I mean, again, sort of like saying we're gonna just stand in the way of any orders or anything we're being asked to do. If Kash Patel or the president wants this information and you tell your underlings don't do it, I don't think you're going to have a future there. Not to mention they wouldn't get the Epstein files. Remember that? Over to Pam Bondi, and she was furious. And so he got fired, and then on Monday morning or whenever it was, she got all the files. Anyway, here's everybody just freaking out there in the New York field office. He got a bagpipe send-off and everything.
An extraordinary scene outside of the New York FBI office in the last hour. Assistant Director in Charge, James Dennehy, who was forced to resign under pressure this week, left the building to cheers from hundreds of his colleagues and the sound of bagpipes. He was forced out after clashing with Donald Trump's Justice Department after the removal of senior FBI leaders and requests for the names of agents who worked on the January 6 cases. He told those gathered that he will be their, quote, best cheerleader on the outside. We'll be watching for that. Another break for us. We'll be right back.
A lot of people were upset that he didn't get fired because by retiring, he was given that optionality. He still keeps all his benefits. And they were saying, this is somebody who really wasn't playing by the... But I would just go back to this. You're either with him or you're against him. And if you're against him, you probably shouldn't be in the gig. And I think he's got to figure that out. I mean, you look around at the federal government and there's all these Obama types. Obama came in, everybody loved him, everybody worshiped him. Really? I mean, he was the be-all, end-all. And somehow his legacy just persevered and continues, frankly, until today. I mean, you've got like a lot of Obama holdovers that are still highly connected within the administration today. I'll show you something funny, guys. Check this out. How do you like this? This just happened today. Guess what? They replaced Obama's portrait with the very iconic photo of Donald Trump in that fight moment there in Butler County, Pennsylvania. So Obama, you know what? I think the handwriting is quite literally on the wall. And it's kind of symbolic when you think of it in a way. But this is what's important right now. He's got to get rid of all these Obama holdovers and all these people that are actually, total libs that don't agree with his policy. And if you don't have people that are on your team, it's like, any CEO, right, is going to do that. It's partly why I think it's really important, the new information that we're learning right now in this moment. I have a busy weekend ahead, 700 pages, my gosh, of the Crossfire Hurricane documents. So these were just released. We told you the other day that they were going to be coming. Crossfire Hurricane was the operation that they ran to basically deliver that Russia story with the fake dossier that Christopher Steele had assembled. And they were running this whole thing, apparently like 20 some odd people were being targeted on the Trump campaign, where they were trying to use different agencies around the world to target these people and to get information about the opposition, which was Donald Trump. So that kind of seems a little weird to me, right? You're using the federal government to basically pick up intel on the other campaign, and you're doing it under this disguise of, well, maybe he's just an op for the Russians. Maybe he's a Manchurian candidate. He was mad. I'll never forget that day when he found out that Carter Page had his phone tapped. He was mad. And he knew a lot more about what was going on, but not everything, right? This is partly why he sued all of these folks, Hillary Clinton and company. He was trying to get discovery. He wanted the information. He didn't get that case through. They threw it out. And so he would have loved to have had that discovery. But now he's back in office. So guess what? He's got all the information now. This is all coming out. And we're going to learn exactly what went down. What I can tell you is basically Hillary Clinton's campaign hired the Perkins Coie law firm, which hired a company called Fusion GPS, which had investigative reporters. They went out and got Christopher Steele, who then went in turn and hired a whole bunch of people. Christopher Steele was an ex-British spy who used to have Russia as his beat. So he assembled this thing. It read like a piece of total garbage, like something you'd pick up in the Inquirer magazine, not like something that you might actually see circulated in the intel community, which was my first red flag. When I saw it, I was like, this doesn't even make any sense. But they like ginned it all up, and the next thing you know, somebody's signing off on a FISA warrant, yet never bothered to do the background check to even see if the information was real. It turns out one of the guys that had a hand in contributing to this information that worked for Steele was suspected of being a Russian spy. I mean, you can't get more convoluted than this one. Here's the news as it broke today.
Todd, this report from Substack citing multiple unnamed sources claims the U.S. intelligence community asked foreign spy agencies to help spy on more than 24 associates of Donald Trump in the run-up to the 2016 election. It reads in part, quote, President Barack Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, had identified 26 Trump associates for the Five Eyes to target. A source confirmed that the IC had identified them as people to bump or make contact with or manipulate. They were targets of our own IC and law enforcement, targets for collection and misinformation. Now, the Five Eyes nations are the U.S., UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Here's one of the reporters, Michael Schellenberger, who spoke to Jesse Waters last night.
If this binder contains what we have been told that it contains, which may include raw intelligence, information showing that the U.S. government, the CIA and the intelligence community of the U.S. government, initiated the Russia collusion hoax, that it did not occur in the way that the official story, including the Durham investigation, had portrayed it, then that's extremely serious information.
The report was released at the same time House conservatives are preparing a bill that would reauthorize Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that allows the government to collect communications from foreigners abroad. And today, the House Rules Committee is set to meet over that FISA reform bill, guys.
Unbelievable, right? Like, we're going to learn so much. Thank you so much, Scott Cullen, for the generosity. Yeah, I get it. You're not a Letitia fan either. Letitia, though, she's in on it too, right? The entire apparatus was all about, okay, we're going to go after Donald Trump. And they were going after him from the very beginning. And you got to say to yourself, what is it really about? Is it really him? Or is it that Obama couldn't accept the fact that his legacy was going to be turned over to Donald Trump? I mean, his girl, right? His gal, Hillary Clinton, was supposed to win. Hillary Clinton, with all her dirty entanglements and her lies. And, well, you know, this goes back to her. What do you think Crossfire Hurricane was? But her operation from her team being run by her law firm that worked for her campaign. Unbelievable. And Comey, he was so proud of the fact that he had sent out all these honeypots. We had George Papadopoulos on the show the other day. He's like, I was a victim of 3 of these things. Even on Ben Carson's campaign, they were coming after me. And I'm like, why Ben Carson? He said anybody that they thought could possibly win, they wanted intel on. So the intel community was all over this. Why? Because they didn't want to turn over, have any kind of change in power. They had Obama there for 8 years. They liked it that way. Here's Comey back in the day going on MSNBC to say, why you can't vote for Trump? Because he's going to go after me. Yeah, you better believe he's going after you. And I hope he really, really goes after you. Because I really hope that we find out, like I said, I got 700 pages to read, what is happening. You know what, Mendova Nava, thank you for the generosity, and I agree with you. I'm glad Biden's gone too. Here's coming.
When you think about a second Trump administration, what do you think the implications would be for the FBI? Oh, serious, for the Justice Department and the FBI, because Trump is coming for those institutions. He knows their power, and I think he has regrets that he didn't work hard enough to corrupt them last time. So he's coming for them, and that's a danger for all Americans. He's going to put people in positions in those organizations. He didn't have all-stars the last time. He'll have the bottom of the barrel this time, but people who will want to do his will, and that should worry every American. This election matters. Because of a reason like that, people have to participate. You cannot sit on the sideline. I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden, you must vote for him because the consequences on the other side are too severe.
Really? Really? That's what, because, well, you might wind up in a whole lot of trouble, Mr. Comey, right? Because if it turns out this thing has all your fingerprints on it, like we suspect it might, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So again, 700 pages. So we do have a lot of reading to do. I'll be back with a full report on Monday, but I can tell you just what I've gleaned from it here. They were running a whole operation to figure out what the other side was doing, the other campaign was doing. I don't think this was about whether or not they believed someone was a threat to America in a Russian plant. No, and they made the whole thing up. That's one of the things that we learned, right, from the Mueller report, was that the whole thing was made up. I suspected it from the beginning. I'll tell you, I got good instincts. I really do. So I trust them. I trust them when it comes to investing too. 76 Research. We'll talk about that later. But I'll tell you this, Trump needs his own people. He needs his own people there. He's got to actually do this vetting. I get it. Maybe the NSA guy was great. I don't know. But something happened under his watch. And he was in charge of cybersecurity. And look what happened with that Signalgate chat. So I just go back to, you need the right people that you believe have your back, because you've got to believe in them as much as them believing in you.